On today's show, we are interviewing the legendary former key Apple employee turned venture capitalist, best-selling author, chief evangelist for Canva, and Mercedes-Benz. It is none other than my brother from another mother, Mr. Guy Kawasaki. And on today's show, Guy shares why he believes that the secret of his success is his ability to outwork people, why he believes that there are two fundamental functions in life. Somebody has to make it, and somebody has to sell it. Why he believes that getting the crap beat out of him while attempting to sell diamonds at a jewelry store was key to his professional development. Why he believes that surrounding yourself with a network of great people is key to creating great opportunities. Why he believes that if you have a great resume, you can't hide behind it. And why he believes if you don't have a great resume, why you can't use that as an excuse. Why he lived in perpetual fear of Steve Jobs, but yet he wouldn't trade those days for anything. Why he believes that real entrepreneurs ship a product and then test it based upon actual market feedback. Why he believes that you shouldn't waste your day checking emails. How he decides what projects to work on. And why at Apple, the employees wore shirts that read, "Working 60 hours per week and loving it." And why his personal mantra is to empower people like you. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Guy Kawasaki.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrivetime Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, 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 and yes. Thrive Nation, on today's show, we have the legendary, the iconic man with the plan, Mr. Guy Kawasaki. Welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
That's quite an intro.
I've been working on that for about 14 hours in a row now, so I feel I'll try again if I need to. Welcome on to the show, sir.
Oh, thank you. I can tell already it's going to be a fun day here.
Yes. Now, okay. Now, your career deserves. You could have 15 shows about you, but I tried to distill to break down today's questions into the ones that I think will impact our audience the most. So let's go back to college, and you're selling jewelry.
Yeah.
Could you talk about selling jewelry and how that job helped you?
Yeah. So I was in the MBA program at UCLA, which was a 4-day-a-week program, and I needed money and had an extra day. So I started working for a jewelry manufacturer in downtown LA where I counted diamonds.
Really?
And yeah, literally counted diamonds. And later, when I graduated from the MBA program, I went to work for that jewelry company instead of Wells Fargo or McKinsey or Goldman Sachs, unlike my classmates.
Yeah.
And I became eventually the vice president of marketing and sales for this company. And so I had to go and sell jewelry to jewelry retailers around the world.
Mm.
And I have to tell you, that was great training because, in my humble opinion, there are 2 fundamental functions in life. Somebody has to make it and somebody has to sell it. So if you can do one of those 2 things, you will always be okay.
Did you have a specific book or a specific mentor or a specific method that you learned that allowed you to become good at sales? Because most people by default are not very good at sales, and then everything else begins to fail when you can't sell anything. How did you become a sales master?
Basically, I got the crap beat out of me. I mean, I think that's the way. In a sense, well, to take the sort of more intellectual extreme of that, if you go to work for Procter and Gamble, and you're selling Tide and Bold and whatever they sell, Swiffers, and you're calling on supermarkets, I would think that you're getting the crap beaten out of you.
True.
And that is very good training because you really learn to sell and you learn empathy and you learn to work hard, and none of this kind of. I created a website and I did a sex tape, and now I'm a internet influencer.
You know, I got to cross that off my list because
Yeah.
I was telling the guys, I said, guys, if we could just get a sex tape made, and this is what they said to me. And I said, guys, that could have been our move, but you're saying that's not the move.
No, keep your day job, bro.
Okay, we're moving on here. Now, you then somehow landed at Apple. And for the listeners who haven't read your books and followed you and cyberstalked you like myself, can you explain how you went from the jewelry store to Apple?
Nepotism.
Nepotism.
Nepotism is when you hire a friend or a family. So I went to school with a guy named Mike Boych, and he eventually hired me into Apple where he was. So I had the wrong educational background, psychology. I had the wrong work experience, counting diamonds, to go to work for Apple. It was pure and simple nepotism. And, in my book, Wise Guy, I talk about this story, and there's a lesson there. And the lesson there is, number one, make friends in college.
Right, okay.
Number two is, you may not have the perfect background, but don't let that stop you. So the key is to get in, and once you get in, to work your ass off and succeed. So it's not how you got in. It could be, your father's connections, your mother's connections. It could be your classmate. Doesn't matter how you get in. It just matters what you do once you get in. And there's a corollary to that. The corollary to that is, let's say you had the world's greatest background, right? So you went to Dartmouth and Yale, and you work for Goldman Sachs. You're just perfect on paper. You had a 4.2 GPA, Phi Beta Kappa, just everything.
Yeah, just everything.
Right? So you get this job, and guess what? The next day, nobody gives a if you went to Harvard or Dartmouth or Yale or Stanford, or you had a 4.2 or whatever. You either produce or you don't produce. So that's a very valuable lesson that, if you have this perfect background, you can't live off of it. If you don't have a perfect background, it doesn't matter if you work your
in your book, Wise Guy, you talk a lot about your experience working at Apple, and I'd just like for the listeners to hear it from you. Did they hire you as their leading diamond purchaser, seller, or what did you do at Apple when you started?
Well, my nepotistic friend hired me. We went out and evangelized Macintosh to software companies and hardware companies. So our job was to take a pre-release computer with no install base and very few tools, very little documentation, and convince companies to write Macintosh software and create Macintosh hardware.
So you started there through nepotism in this position. You're evangelizing. How often did you interact with Steve Jobs?
As little as I could.
Okay, that's fair.
Well,
that's fair.
He was 2 or 3 layers above me. It was a small division though, so we'd ran into each other. But I can't tell you that I was in his inner circle, and it's not clear to me being in his inner circle is safe. So he was a very challenging perfectionist kind of person. I lived in fear of him, but I would not trade those days for anything.
You've done talks, so I've seen video interviews or video presentations where you've talked about some of the things you've learned from Steve. You talked about these 12 pivotal lessons you've learned from Steve Jobs. Could you talk about his personality a little bit? Because there's movies made about him where there's like the Ashton Kutcher movie, there's kind of like the happy one, and then there's the Walter Isaacson book he did with Steve, which I enjoyed. What was the personality like of Steve Jobs?
Well, basically, all those movies and books are kind of accurate. I mean, to some extent, and so there may be some factual issues and all that, but he kind of was what he was, and he was a perfectionist. He didn't exactly mince his words. You could say that he didn't really care about people's feelings. That sounds more negative than it is, because There are some people who don't care about people's feelings because they're just 24 karat, orifices, right? There are other people that it's just not on their radar. They just don't think about other people's feelings. It's not part of their operating system to consider other people's feelings. They just blurt out the truth, or they blurt out their opinion. Whereas there are other people who are trying to drill you into the ground. And Steve it was just not in his operating system. He just was what he was. Truly the first WYSIWYG CEO.
Well, in my shameless attempt to help you sell your book, Wise Guy here, in your book, you talk about these 12 pivotal lessons. I'd like for you to share 3 of them. That way the listeners are going to say, I can't stand it. I've got to buy the Wise Guy book today. So let's talk about one of these pivotal lessons here. Value is different from price. What does that mean?
Yes. Well, in the case of Apple, no one ever bought anything from Apple because it had the lowest list price. If you just compare apples against apples, no pun intended, for performance, screen size, et cetera, Apple products are never the cheapest. You never buy an Apple product on price. You do buy an Apple product on value. So value considers other things besides the simple dollar amount. It considers ease of use, ease of conversion, coolness, all those other things, lack of the need for IT support, all this kind of thing. So when you buy a Macintosh, it's because you're going to get up to speed faster, you're going to have better results, and you're going to have less support. So is it more expensive when you buy it? Yes. But over the course of a lifetime, will it give you more value? Also, yes.
Have you ever used a PC? Is it like unethical in your mind to use a PC? Have you ever used a PC?
I used one about 6 years ago for about 30 seconds, I remember. But generally, I never, ever use a PC.
Never used. Okay, that's one I wanted to ask you, because these are the tough questions the Thrivers want to ask you. Now, you have started saying, I've seen a few talks where you've talked about this, and then in your book, Wise Guy, you talk about this. You say, real entrepreneurs ship. Do you remember when you first started talking about this idea publicly?
Do I remember when? I don't remember what I did yesterday, man.
I feel like you've been saying that, though, for about a decade, haven't you? I mean, because it's easier to see what you've been saying on YouTube now than it was, before YouTube. But
yeah. So, but what I mean by that is I meet with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they've been in their garage or in their bedroom, and they've been noodling with this idea and tinkering around for years. And they're waiting for, I don't know what they're waiting for. They're waiting for the perfect product with the perfect market, with adequate funding and no competition. And that just does not describe the real world. And so real entrepreneurs, they ship and then they test. So you ship a Macintosh 128K. It doesn't have enough RAM. The chip's too slow. The monitor is monochrome. There's not enough software. There's lots of flaws with what you ship. But once you ship, that's when the real work begins. And that's also when you truly know what you have to do. Because you can sit in your dark cave in your mother's house and, cogitate about what will be necessary for your product. But the moment you ship, harsh reality slaps you in the face.
I don't expect you to have done extensive research on me, but one of the companies I started back in the day out of my dorm room at Oral Roberts University was DJconnection.com.
Yeah.
And before I sold it, we were doing about 4,000 weddings a year. And I thought
4,000 weddings a year?
80 a weekend. Yeah, it's the largest in the country. And I was cogitating. I was thinking, you know what? I am going to build this awesome club DJ company. Now, I found out quickly at the age of 18 is that you're not going to be very wealthy unless you're like a Calvin Harris or a DJ Tiesto, because there's just not that many clubs that have that many events that can pay 80 guys to DJ. But weddings are everywhere. And when I went out there and tried to ship, I defined what I thought would work. I acted, and then I had to measure the results and realize I got to refine this entire thing. And that pivot happened like in my first month of marketing, going from a club DJ to a wedding DJ. That is so important. Why do people get stuck on that idea of just defining, but never acting, measuring, and refining?
Well, you probably learned more in the first day
Right.
than you did in the previous year, right? Um, but that's how life is, and so hence the algorithm that real entrepreneurs ship, or so real authors ship too. There are people who work for years on a book and they never ship it. Well, you gotta ship it. That's just it doesn't exist unless you ship it.
You decided to at one point leave Apple. And you've done a lot of other ventures throughout your career beyond just your time at Apple. I know a lot of people want to focus there, and there's so much more tapestry in your quilt of a career there. Can you explain why you decided to leave Apple and then what you did between the 87 and 95 period?
There's two versions of why I left Apple.
Okay.
So version one is I left Apple because I truly did believe in the Macintosh software market. I wanted to start a software company and make the big bucks like software entrepreneurs do.
Yeah.
So that's the Silicon Valley dream.
Yeah.
Version number two of this is I went to a job review with my manager, and I was up for being a director level person. And director level at Apple at that time meant that Apple bought you a car. And I really wanted Apple to buy me a car. So I go into this job review, and the guy tells me, well, the small developers really love you. The innovative, two guys in a garage, two gals in a garage, a guy and a gal in a garage, they love you.
Oh, yeah.
But Microsoft, Ashton Tate, and Lotus, they don't like you. And so because those three companies are so important and so strategic for Apple, but they don't like you, I'm not giving you your promotion.
Oh, come on.
And I just friggin' hit the ceiling. Because to me, Ashton Tate was making a mediocre product. Microsoft was copying our user interface. And Lotus didn't believe in Macintosh at all. So those three companies should hate me.
Right.
I mean, that was the right thing to happen. And so I went to a friend at Apple who was kind of a peer at that point. And his name was Jean-Louis Gasset. And I said, Jean-Louis, I'm just going to quit, man. I went into this review and they told me that I wasn't being promoted for this reason. And he said, God, don't quit. Don't do anything rash. There's going to be a reorg. You're going to be reporting to me. And the next time you have a review, which is in 6 months, I will make you a director. And he did.
Got it.
And then I quit the next day to start a company.
Oof. Okay, so you now when you quit, I know I was working at Applebee's, Target, and DirecTV at the same time, while my wife worked at Office Depot and Oral Roberts University to start my first company. Yeah. And I remember when I could finally afford to quit, there's kind of that feeling of like, yes, but I didn't tell my wife first. So she comes home. We're 21 years old. She comes home. She's like, "What are you doing home?" And I'm like, I quit. What did you do when you quit? I was just sitting there happy as can be, kind of freaking my wife out a little bit. What did you do the day you quit?
Oh, I think the next day I started working on the company that I quit to start. Okay. It was the Macintosh database company.
And tell us about that venture and then what you did after that.
Yeah, so I started a Macintosh database company, and it did okay. It didn't do spectacularly. I stayed there for about 3 years. I kind of didn't get along with the other founders, so I left and I just pursued my bliss for a while as a writer and a speaker. And, I returned to Apple a few years later. I started a venture capital firm. Today, I'm chief evangelist of a company called Canva, which is an online graphics design service that everybody should use to create their graphics.
Canva,
C-A-N-V-A, and I'm a Mercedes-Benz brand ambassador. So I get paid to drive a Mercedes. That's a true story.
I want to get into this. I'm going to ask you a really rude question right now. And if you hang up, I'll pick up that you don't like the question. Here's my question. I think you're a brand ambassador for fish oil because you are getting younger every year. Have you seen your face? Your face is getting younger, and I call you on the carpet. Are you a brand ambassador for fish oil?
No, I'm just getting better and better at Photoshop.
Oh, man. How old are you at last count?
I am 64.
It's not possible.
I am 64. Why would I lie?
I'm just saying you look younger all the time. Don't take this the weird way. You're a beautiful man. You're a beautiful man. I think you're using your sex to sell. Some people use sex tapes. You're using your Photoshopped face or your fish oil, whatever that is. So now,
what keeps me young is, well, first of all, I have a fantastic wife. But I also, or not but, and I have 4 children, and these children are as young as 13 and as old as 25. So my 13-year-old, who's a seventh grader, he's got, let's see, 2 more years. So and then he has 3 more years, 5. He's probably got 9 or 10 more years, right?
Right.
And so my plan is he graduates from college and the next day I die. That's the plan. So
Now you chapter 7 of your book, The Wise Guy. You wrote in the book Wise Guy, chapter 7. You decided to call this chapter parenting. And
Yeah.
very few entrepreneurs, and I'm not ripping on most entrepreneurs, but we've interviewed, the top PR guy on the planet, Michael Levine, and we have Wolfgang Puck on the books. We've got founder Ritz Carlton. And a lot of times you interview people that can really keep the family together. So it's like as they're growing the business, they can also grow the family. They keep it together. And then a lot of times you meet people where it's almost like two diametrically opposed ideas. It's almost like if I'm going to have a great business, my marriage is going to be terrible. And I think you've done both, so in my opinion, you're one of the most successful people we've interviewed. And you said on chapter 7 of your book, you said, parenting has been the most challenging and most rewarding activity of my life. So I would love for you to share, without judgment of our listeners, but where do most people seem to get it wrong with managing a family and keeping that together while keeping a business together?
Man, I'm not going to touch that.
You won't.
Question. Who the hell am I to give you this
Okay,
advice?
let me ask you, why is your family stay together? Is your wife just awesome, or why? Because you seem like you're a very happily married guy, and I just want to know, because I think there's a lot of listeners who want to know that.
Well, my wife is fantastic, and I take our vows very seriously. Listen, I don't want to hold myself up like it's my Charles
You're not
Barkley
doing it.
moment.
You're the most humble man in the world. I'm just saying I'm impressed.
That's not true. I like Charles Barkley. I don't want to be a role model. I just love my kids. I love my family. When I hate traveling. When I'm home, I'm at home, literally in the house. I don't go to an office. So, and when I travel, I travel like nobody else I know. A long visit for any city in the world for me is 24 hours. I have done things like go to Russia for 12 hours, speak, and come back,
Wow.
within 2 days. The whole trip is 2 days. I go to Chicago in the morning, come back that night. I just want to be with my family. I love my family, and we have 4 kids, and they all surf, and I love to surf. So that's what I want to do. I just want to surf.
You and I share a lot of things in common there. I have 5 kids, and I live behind a wall. We call it Camp Clark and Chicken Palace at the Lampoon Lagoon. And I almost never leave except for to go to Atwood's to buy supplies for my silky chickens, and I come back. So I really,
What city do you live in?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
There's
It's
no
the
surfing there.
birthplace of tourism. Sod farm tours are huge this time of year. And I'm just kidding. But we have 17 acres, and we love it in Tulsa. But we really just never I don't like to ever travel at all almost. And in your book, you also talk about email, which I think is a less controversial subject, but your take on it is fairly controversial. So we'll move off the family stuff. You wrote here in your book, Wise Guy, I once lost 400 unanswered emails in my inbox because my email application crashed. Afterward, no one sent a follow-up email asking why I hadn't responded. Later, I lost another inbox and I only had a handful of people follow up. I'd love for you to break this down.
Yeah. So, and what I embraced was when close friends die, and I've had some close friends die, I just take my inbox and throw it away in honor of them. Because I have noticed it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. You think everybody's waiting, and half the time, I respond, and the response to the response is, "Oh, I sent you an email. I never thought you'd answer. Thank you for answering." Well, why am I answering email that people don't expect to get answered? Like, why am I making myself crazy? So my message to your listeners is, don't sweat your email. Like, I have right now, and I look at my email inbox and it's getting to be a few hundred. I just throw away everything that's older than 30 days. And I figure if If it matters, they're going to write back to me. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
You are a guy who loves your family. You love what you do. You're always smiling. You're a great personality. I know you don't want to be a role model, and I'm not saying you are. You know, maybe we're all looking down and judging you for looking so young all the time. But your book, The Wise Guy, you decided to write this book. It's called Wise Guy: Lessons from a Life. What first inspired you to sit down and write this book?
Royalty.
Royalty. You said, I'm going to make some royalties. That's my move.
That's a joke, man. That's a joke.
I like that. So you're saying, hey, I have a lot of stories. I know people want to hear them. So bang, bang, there we go.
Yeah, more or less, yeah. I wanted to write another book, and I thought, geez, I got enough stories. Just put them together in a book. And listen, this is not my memoir or my autobiography, okay? Because unless you're Nelson Mandela or Mother Teresa or, Martin Luther King, you don't write a memoir. So this ain't a memoir. This is probably many of your listeners have heard of Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yeah.
But Chicken Soup for the Soul are short stories from many different people. This is Miso Soup for the Soul. This is just guys' stories about my life and what I learned.
What are you terrible at? I think a lot of people, not our listeners, but they do look up to you and they say, this guy, his name is Guy. He's great, good skin, great wife, great kids, 4 kids. They all surf. What's going on? I just want to be like Guy. But I'd like for you to share, and you don't have to share anything weird, but I mean, what are you terrible at? What do you say, that is the thing I'm not good at? I think that would be very helpful for our listeners.
Surfing is one.
Really? Really? You're not good at it?
Surfing and hockey are 2 of my great passions, neither of which I can do very well. So what I figured out is when you love to do something that you're not good at, it is true love, right? Because anybody can love what you're good at. How many can love what you're not good at? So,
how much hockey do you? How much do you love hockey? I mean, is it like is it your passion?
Well, I have kind of transitioned from hockey to surfing, but I used to play hockey 4 times a week. I mean,
Really?
I loved hockey.
Who is your favorite player?
Yeah, probably Brett Hull. I just
Really?
all he did was shoot. He's my kind of guy.
Now I want to ask you this question. This is. Did you like Wayne Gretzky? Was he kind of your style? You're out there in California. He was.
Okay, so here's a bizarre thing. So I started playing hockey at 48, and I started surfing at 62, which is few decades too late for each of them. And so when I started hockey at 48, Wayne Gretzky had already retired. I didn't even know who these people were.
Well, I got to tell you a funny Wayne Gretzky story. I only have one Wayne Gretzky story. Yesterday, I'm interviewing Shep Gordon, the famous manager. I'll just tell the listeners out there who don't know. He's managed Sylvester Stallone and Alice Cooper and all these big iconic names. I think it's Wolfgang Puck. So I'm interviewing him. He lives in Hawaii now. And in the background, there's somebody punking him, some guy making noise and just kind of messing with him. And that person was Wayne Gretzky. So he's he's like, Wayne, seriously, I'm doing an interview. So anyway, that was a real thing. So that's kind of funny.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So you are an intentional guy. I know you're focused on the family. So you're probably focused on simplicity at some level, or, just not spending your time doing things that don't matter. What are the things that you don't do that you think a lot of people you're not judging. I'm just saying, maybe you're talking to me. You're saying, Clay, here are the things that I don't do that a lot of business people think they have to do.
Answer email.
All right, then that's a big thing. That'll save at least an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours a day for somebody. What else?
Well, a slightly different answer. What is the secret to my success is that I am willing to grind it out. I outwork people. And so I'm not smarter than people. I just work harder than people. And that's kind of my story. I just love to work.
So with Canva, which you're a brand ambassador for now and you're involved in, how did you decide that Canva was a good fit for you? And how do you decide, okay, this is a project I want to invest my time in? Because you're going to work hard once you decide, but how do you decide?
Well, the true story with Canva is that I had, and still work with her, a person who helps me with my social media, optimizing my posts, et cetera, et cetera. So this is back 5 years ago now. and she was using Canva to make graphics for my tweets, and she just loved it. So one day, the people from Canva reach out to me over Twitter, suggesting that we talk and meet and all that. And so I got the tweet, and I said to her name is Peggy Fitzpatrick. I said to her, is this the company that you use? Is this the company you're always raving about for graphics? She said, yeah. And I said, well, do you think I should help them? And she said, yeah, you should help them. It's a great company. It's great for making graphics. And so that's how I decided, because there's a lesson there too, which is, listen to people who really do the work. She was really doing the work. She was really at the front line. She knew what was good. So I just listened to her.
We have about 500,000 downloads a month of our podcast from people who, a lot of them want to drive a Mercedes or do drive a Mercedes. So I'd like to ask you, do you have a specific, as the ambassador, as the man who gets paid to drive the Mercedes, do you have a specific make and model that you say that is, boom, that's nice, that's hot?
Well, right now I'm driving an S63. So it's the S-Class, but the bi-turbo, super-duper AMG one of that. However, I will tell you that we just came out with an A series, which is the antithesis of the S series. So the A series starts at about 33 grand, and it's kind of competes with the entry-level BMW, entry-level,
like
Audi,
like
an Audi A3.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a part of me that I just jump in a small car, good gas mileage, just like dart around. So that's one. I would, if Mercedes called me up today and said, listen, guy, we want you to swap out cars. What car do you want? I would tell them an A series. And if not, then at the other extreme, there's a Sprinter, which is the ultimate surf mobile. And coming up very shortly is what's called an EQC, which is their basic all-electric mid-size SUV. So that would be, it has like a 220-mile range on the battery, holds 5 SUV size, surfboard racks on the top. That would be the one.
So let me ask you this here. When you're not surfing or recovering from hockey injuries or spending time with your family, how do you spend the first 4 hours of your typical day? Like, what time are you waking up, and what does your first 4 hours look like?
Man, you don't want to know.
I want to know. I want to know now. I want to know the current for the current 4 hours. Then I'd like to go back.
I wake up, and the first thing I do is I look at 3 news services. So there's Google News, Apple News, and Smart News. So I look at these 3 things because I want to see the news. So for my social media, I spend a lot of time curating social media. So I need to find a lot of good stories every day. So I do that. Then I drop off my kid. So where my son goes to school, it's half hour there, half hour back. So okay. Well, back up a second. So I get up at 6:30. About 50% of the time, I make him breakfast. I take him to school, and I come back, and now it's about 8:30. I go to a coffee shop, and I do email and answer social media for the next 2 or 3 hours. Then I go and eat someplace, and then I do another 2 or 3 hours of email and social media. Then I pick up a child or 2, and I come home, and then I do email and social media.
And that's your world right now. That's a daily normal for you.
And that's with me ignoring email. Imagine if I didn't ignore them all.
Now, when you were back in your Apple days, when you're out there just grinding every day as an employee and member of that team, what was the schedule expectation like when you worked there?
We had a sweatshirt that said working 60 hours a week and loving it. So it was, we were working 60 hours, and we truly did love it. I mean, we were on a mission to change the world, to dent the universe, to make people more creative and productive with a personal computer. It was a great time.
So you loved it, 60 hours a week and loving it. They had a shirt. You all wore the shirt that said working 60 hours a week and loving it.
Yep.
That's awesome. Now this is my final question that I have for you on today's show.
Okay.
You are come across as a very proactive person. I'm not hyping you up, not building you up as a role model, just saying you come across as a proactive guy. How are you going to spend the next 12 months? What's your vision? What's your goal? Do you have a goal? Do you have a vision for the next 12 months of your life?
Well, for the next couple months, I'm heavily invested in the introduction of this book. So lots of these kind of recordings, lots of trips, lots of signings, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
As a baseline, I'm always trying to evangelize Canva. I'm always making speeches. I make 50 or 60 speeches a year. So I'm traveling, making speeches. I'm evangelizing Canva. A lot of this travel involves Mercedes-Benz or Canva. And then when I'm not doing any of those things, I'm at home with my family and surfing.
Where do you call the home these days?
Northern California.
Northern California, okay. So I think what we're going to do, I think the cost of living is pretty high up there in Northern California.
Yeah.
So I would just say this for the listeners out there. I'm doing a fundraiser, and for as little as Guy, $2,000 a day, you could feed a Guy Kawasaki. And so the only way we can do that is we have to generate royalties. And the only way we can do that is we got to buy the book. So everybody out there, if you're wise, if you just care about humanity and you want to help support Guy Kawasaki for as little as $2,000 a day, you too could support a Guy Kawasaki. Guy, am I missing something there? Is that about right?
Well, I don't want people to buy the book for that reason. I want you to buy the book because it reflects 30 years of living, 30 years of mistakes, 30 years of working my tail off. And I want you to benefit from my experience so that you can optimize your life. You may be able to avoid the mistakes I made. At the very least, I hope you make different mistakes than I made. And, I have a personal mantra for my life, which is to empower people. So I think this book will empower you to have a better life. And listen, it's not one of these get rich quick, buy my book and you'll be an internet real estate millionaire, driving a Mercedes and, all that kind of stuff. I'm not an infomercial. I'm not a cult figure. I'm not, that kind of guy. These are simple, down-to-earth stories that taught me about life. And I think that they can apply to almost anybody's life.
And what's the number one way where if people love today's show and they say, I want to learn more about you, is there a particular website you want to direct them to or a Twitter handle? I mean, obviously people can Google you, but is there a specific place where you say, that right there is me at my best? Go there.
Until you said me at my best, I had an answer for you.
Oh, sorry. You and your normal self.
If you want to see what I'm into and what I'm doing and, how I'm trying to change the world and, whatever, it's probably my LinkedIn account. So I post a lot on LinkedIn. So that's sort of my serious side. My playful, real life, behind the scenes side is Instagram. So between Instagram and LinkedIn, you will truly get insights into who I am. And I'm warning you right now, that's for better or for worse.
Well, Guy, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here on the show. I cannot express with words how much excitement there was for the whole Thrive community to have you on, myself included. It means the world to us.
Well, thank you. It's I just love doing these. I mean, you get to let it rip on these things. I just love this. So thank you for having me.
Chup, there are so many knowledge bombs per capita on this show.
It was unbelievable.
And we have a lot of listeners out there that are note takers, and they kind of tune into the Thrivetime show, radio show, or podcast because they're looking for practical action steps that they can take as a result of what they've just learned. In your mind, what are the most practical action steps, or what is a practical action step that the listeners can take as a result of today's show?
I really like when he talks about just ship your product or service or whatever you're sitting there mulling on and going over and over and over and suffering from what we call paralysis by analysis. Just launch that thing. Define, act, measure, and refine. Get going. Don't sit around. Don't wait. The perfect time, the perfect situation is never going to happen. Act now.
I have, I think, 5 or 6 action items that I got out of this interview that are powerful. So I'm just going to recap them.
Let's do it.
The first is Guy said that he believes the secret of his success is his ability to outwork people. And I have found that when you are around enormously successful people, you will notice that they are the first person at the office.
The grind is real.
And I think that people think that the most successful people are the last person to the office. But that is almost never the case.
Right.
Until the person who achieved massive success wants to hit the easy button, then they no longer want to be there, which I think would be where Dr. Zellner is.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
That guy was the first guy to the office every single day.
7 days a week.
7 days a week, working forever. And now he said, I want to hit the easy button.
Yep.
So he still manages his companies and pulls the weeds when needed, but he's not the first guy in the parking lot. But again, people are so interested in the success, achievement, the winning of the marathon. Very few people are interested in the daily regimen and routine needed to win the marathon.
But that's what you have to do.
And I know that our listeners are exclusively focused on the daily routines, the practical tactics, the techniques, the processes that people use to become successful. So action step number 1 is outwork everybody, including your competition. 2, I really do believe that everyone has to learn sales. And if you're out there trying to avoid sales, he said that working at the jewelry store and getting the crap beaten out of him was powerful for him. He said that is what taught him how to sell. And he said that there are 2 essential functions out there. Function number 1 is you have to make something that people want to buy. And function number 2 is you have to be able to sell it. And as long as you can make something that people want to buy or sell it, then you win the game of life.
Good. That's right. And this isn't just theory. That is like the first or second place anybody that gets hired on at the Thrivetime show starts is on the phones learning how to do sales.
He also said you can't just coast based on your resume.
Yes.
Nor can you let your lack of a resume serve as an excuse. At the end of the day, you get paid based on the results that you deliver. You get paid based upon the value that you deliver per hour, as opposed to just the amount of hours you work.
He said you either produce or you don't produce. It's that simple.
Think about that. As an entrepreneur, you get paid based upon the value that you deliver to each hour, not based on the number of hours that you work. And that is an interesting idea. He also said that he lived in perpetual fear of Steve Jobs. He said that he loved Steve Jobs, and he wouldn't trade those days in for the days he spent working with Steve for anything. But he also was very clear, very transparent that he and most people were afraid of Steve Jobs.
Yes.
And I would say that this is the relationship that most bosses should have with their team, and this is the relationship that you, the listener, and I, the host, should have with God.
Yeah.
It talks about in the Bible a lot having a healthy fear of God.
Fear and respect.
Right. And I think respect and fear are very tied together.
Yes.
And you want your employees to love you and respect you, and you want them to like you. But at the end of the day, if your employees ever get to a place where they think that they are unfireable, you will lose. He also believes you shouldn't waste your day checking emails. He says you shouldn't waste your day checking emails.
So good.
And he also says, we talk about the F6 life, faith, family, finances, fitness, friendship, and fun. And I asked him what his goals were for the year, and he said, I want to surf.
Big time.
With his kids.
That's right.
All his
All
kids
four
are
of them surf, and that's
right.
what he's into.
So again, if you're out there today, there's so much knowledge you can glean out of today's show. And if you laughed or learned anything during today's show, I would encourage you to share it with a friend on Facebook, maybe Instagram, maybe Twitter. Text somebody a link.
Text them the link to the thrivetimeshow.com, thrivetimeshow.com.
And Chuck, you know this because listeners have told us this. They've said, guys, honestly, I don't ever share a show unless I share it within a couple minutes after listening because I get busy and I forget.
It's okay. It's what happens, right? That's what happens.
And so I would just encourage you to, if today's show impacted your life in some capacity, think about who in your life needs to hear today's show. And share it with them via text or email as soon as possible. Share it with them on social media because this message, the messages on today's show, the only reason we do this is to help mentor millions. And there's somebody out there that needs to hear what Guy Kawasaki taught today. So share it with them today because you never know whose life you could impact.
Do it now. Take action.
And Chuck, without any further ado, we like to end each and every show with a boom.
There we go.
Are you psychologically ready to bring the boom?
Never. I can't be.
Are you physically ready?
Physically ready.
Are you emotionally ready?
Yes.
Are you spiritually ready?
Yes, but not
And what about in a metaphysical way? Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go.
I was born metaphysically ready.
3, 2, 1, boom! And make sure you purchase the book Wise Guy, written by Guy Kawasaki at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or anywhere that great books are sold.
Clay Clark is here somewhere. Where's my buddy Clay? Clay's the greatest. I met his goats today. I met his dogs. I met his chickens. I saw his compound. He's like the greatest guy.
I ran from his goats, his chickens, his dogs.
So this guy's like the greatest marketer you've ever seen, right? His entire life, Clay Clark, his entire life is marketing.
Okay, Aaron Antis, March 6th and 7th. March 6th and 7th, guess who's coming to Tulsa, Jerusalem?
Ooh, Santa Claus?
No, that's March. March 6th and 7th,
Oh.
you're going to be joined by Robert Kiyosaki.
Robert Kiyosaki.
Best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, probably the best-selling, or one of the best-selling business authors of all time. And he's going to be joined with Eric Trump. He'll be joined by Eric Trump. So we got Eric Trump and Robert Kiyosaki in the same place. Aaron, why should everybody show up to hear Robert Kiyosaki?
Well, you got billions of dollars of business experience between those two, not to mention many, many, many millions of books have been sold. Many, many millionaires have been made from the books that have been sold by Robert Kiyosaki. I happen to be one of them. I learned from the man. He was the inspiration. That book was the inspiration for me to get the entrepreneurial spirit, as many other people.
Now, since you won't brag on yourself, I will. You've sold billions of dollars of houses, am I correct?
That is true.
And the book that kickstarted it all for you,
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the author, the best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, the guy that kickstarted your career.
Yeah.
He's going to be here.
He's going to be here. I'm pumped.
And now Eric Trump, people don't know this, but the Trump organization has thousands of employees. There's not 50 employees. The Trump organization, again, most people don't know this, but the Trump organization has thousands of employees. And while Donald J. Trump was the 45th president of these United States and soon to be the 47th president of these United States, he needed someone to run the companies for him. And so the man that runs the Trump organization for Donald J. Trump, as he was the 45th president of the United States and now the 47th president of the United States, is Eric Trump. And so Eric Trump is here to talk about time management, promoting from within, marketing, branding, quality control, sales systems, workflow design, workflow mapping, how to build. I mean, everything that you see, the Trump hotels, the Trump golf courses, all their products, the man who manages billions of dollars of real estate and thousands of employees is here to teach us how to do it.
You are talking about one of the greatest brands on the planet from a business standpoint.
Right.
I mean, who else has been able to create a brand like the Trump brand? I mean, look at it. And this is the man behind the business for the last pretty much since 2015. He's been the man behind it. So you're talking, we're into 9 going into 10 years of him running it, and we get to tap into that knowledge. That's going to be amazing.
Now, think about this for a second. Would you buy a ticket just to see Robert Kiyosaki and Eric Trump? Of course you would.
Of course you would.
But we're also going to be joined by Sean Baker. This is the best-selling author, the guy who invented the carnivore diet.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Sean Baker. He's been on Joe Rogan multiple times. He's going to be joining us. So you've got Robert Kiyosaki, the best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Eric Trump, Sean Baker. The lineup continues to grow, and this is how we do our tickets here at the Thrivetime Show. If you want to get a VIP ticket, you can absolutely do it. It's $500 for a VIP ticket. We've always done it that way. Now, if you want to take a general admission ticket, it's $250 or whatever price you want to pay. And the reason why I do that, and the reason why we do that is because we want to make our events affordable for everybody. I grew up without money. I totally understand what it's like to be in a tight spot. So if you want to attend, it's $250 or whatever price you want to pay. That's how I do it. And it's $500 for a VIP ticket. Now, we only have limited seating here. With the most people we've ever had in this building was for the Jim Brewer presentation. Jim Brewer came here, the legendary comedian Jim Brewer came to Tulsa, and we had 419 people that were here. 419 people.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, there's no more room. I felt kind of bad that if a couple people had VIP seats in the men's restroom. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. But I thought, you know what, we should probably add on. So we're adding on what we call the upper deck, or the top shelf. So the seats are very close to the presenters, but we're actually building right now. We're adding on to the facility to make room to accommodate about another 30 attendees or more. So again, if you want to get tickets for this event, all you have to do is go to thrivetimeshow.com. Go to thrivetimeshow.com. When you go to thrivetimeshow.com, you'll go there, you'll request a ticket, boom. Or if you want to text me, if you want a little bit faster service, you say, I want you to call me right now. Just text my number. It's my cell phone number, my personal cell phone number. We'll keep that private between you, me, everybody. We'll keep that private. And anybody, don't share that with anybody except for everybody. That's my private cell phone number. It's 918-851-0102. 918-851-0102. I know we have a lot of Spanish-speaking people that attend these conferences, and so to be bilingually sensitive, my cell phone number is 918-851-0102.
That is not actually bilingual. That's just saying Juan for a one. It's not the same thing.
I think you're attacking me. Now, let's talk about this. Now, what kind of stuff will you learn at the Thrivetime Show workshop? So, Aaron, you've been to many of these over the past 7-8 years. So let's talk about it. I'll tee up the thing, and then you tell me what you're going to learn here, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
You're going to learn marketing and branding. What are we going to learn about marketing and branding?
Oh, yeah. We're going to dive into, so many people say, I got to get my brand known out there, like the Trump brand, right? You want to get that brand out there. It's like, how do I actually make people know what my business is and make it a household name? You're going to learn some intricacies of how you can do that.
You're going to learn sales. So many people struggle to sell something. This just in, your business will go to hell if you can't sell. So we're going to teach you sales. We're going to teach you search engine optimization, how to come up top in the search engine results. We're going to teach you how to manage people. Aaron, you have managed, no exaggeration, hundreds of people throughout your career and thousands of contractors. And most people struggle with managing people. Why does everybody have to learn how to manage people?
Well, because first of all, you either have great people or you have people who suck. And so it can be a challenge. Learning how to work with a large group of people and get everybody pulling in the same direction can be a challenge. But if you have the right systems, you have the right processes, and you're really good at selecting great ones, and we have a process we teach about how to find great people. When you start with the people who have a great attitude, they're teachable, they're driven, all of those things, then, you can get those people all pulling in the same direction.
So we're going to teach you branding, marketing, sales, search engine optimization. We're going to teach you accounting. We're going to teach you personal finance, how to manage your finance. We're going to teach you time management. How do you manage your time? How do you get more done during a typical day? How do you build an organization if you're not organized? How do you do organization? How do you build an org chart? Everything that you need to know to start and grow a business will be taught during this 2-day interactive business workshop. Now, let me tell you how the format is set up here. And again, folks, this is a 2-day interactive 15. Think about this, folks. It's 2 days. Each day it starts at 7 a.m. and it goes until 5 p.m. So from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., 2 days. It's a 2-day interactive workshop. The way we do it is we do a 30-minute teaching session, and then we break for 15 minutes for a question and answer session. So, Aaron, what kind of great stuff happens during that 15-minute question and answer session after every teaching session?
I actually think it's the best part about the workshops, because here's what happens. I've been to lots of these things over the years. I've paid many thousands of dollars to go to them. And you go in there and they talk in vague generalities, and they're constantly upselling you for something, trying to get you to buy this thing or that thing or this program or this membership. And you leave not getting your very specific questions answered about your business or your employees or what you're doing on your marketing. And what's awesome about this is we literally answer every single question that any person asks, and it's very specific to what your business is.
And what we do is we allow you as the attendee to write your questions on the whiteboard.
Yep.
And then we literally, as you mentioned, we answer every single question on the whiteboard. And then we take a 15-minute break to stretch and to make it entertaining when you're stretching. This is a true story. When you get up and stretch, you'll be greeted by mariachis.
Sure.
There's going to probably be alpaca here, llamas, helicopter rides, a coffee bar, a snow cone. There's just...
You had a crocodile one time. That was pretty interesting.
I should write that down and actually do that.
Sorry for that one guy that we lost.
The crocodile, we duct taped its face so that we duct taped.
No, it was a baby crocodile.
And it was duct tape.
Yeah, duct tape around the mouth so it didn't bite anybody. But it was really cool passing that thing around and petting
I should do that. We have a small petting zoo that will be assembled. It's going to be great. And then you're in the company of hundreds of entrepreneurs. So there's not a lot of people in America today. In fact, there's less than 10 million people today, according to U.S. Debt Clock, that identify as being self-employed. So if you have a country with 350 million people, that means you have less than 3% of our population that's even self-employed. Yeah. So you only have 3 out of every 100 people in America that are self-employed to begin with. And when Inc. magazine reports that 96% of businesses fail by default, By default, you have a 1 out of 1,000 chance of succeeding in the game of business.
It's tough.
But yet the average client that you and I work with, we can typically double this. And this is no hyperbole, no exaggeration. And I have thousands of testimonials to back this up. We have thousands of testimonials to back it up. But when you work with a home builder, when I work with a business owner, we can typically double the size of the company within 24 months.
Yeah.
Double. And you say double? Yeah, there's businesses that we have tripled. There's businesses we've grown 8x. There's so many examples you can see at thrivetimeshow.com. But again, this is the most interactive, best business workshop on the planet. This is objectively the highest rated and most reviewed business workshop on the planet. And then you add to that Robert Kiyosaki, the best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You add to that Eric Trump, the man that runs the Trump Organization. You add to that Sean Baker. Now you might take, but Clay, is there more? I need more. Well, okay, Tom Wheelwright is the wealth strategist for Robert Kiyosaki. So people say, Robert Kiyosaki, who's his financial wealth advisor? Who's the guy who manages, who's his wealth strategist? His wealth strategist, Tom Wheelwright, will be here. And you say, Clay, I'm not going to get a ticket unless you give me more. Okay, fine. We're going to serve you the same meal both days. True story. We cater in the food, and because I keep it simple, I literally bring in the same food both days for lunch. It's Ted Escondido's, an incredible Mexican restaurant. That's going to happen. And Jill Donovan, our good friend, who is the founder of Rustic Cuff. She started that company in her home, and now she sells millions of dollars of apparel and products. That's rusticcuff.com. And someone says, I want more. This is not enough.
Give me more.
Okay. I'm not going to mention their names right now because I'm working on it behind the scenes here. But we've got one guy who's given me a verbal to be here. And this is a guy who's one of the wealthiest people in Oklahoma, and nobody really knows who he is because he's built systems that are very utilitarian, that offer a lot of value. He's made a lot of money in it's where you rent. It's short term. It's where you're renting storage spaces. He's a storage space guy. He owns what do you call that? The rental,
storage space.
Storage units. This guy owns storage units. He owns railroad cars. He owns a lot of assets that make money on a daily basis, but they're not like customer facing. Most people don't know who owns the mini storage facility, or most people don't know who owns the warehouse that's passively making money. Most people don't know who owns the railroad cars, but this guy, he's given me a verbal that he will be here, and we just continue to add more and more success stories. So if you're out there today and you want to change your life, you want to give yourself an incredible gift, you want a life-changing experience, you want to learn how to start and grow a company, go to thrivetimeshow.com. Go there right now, thrivetimeshow.com. Request a ticket for the 2-day interactive event. Again, the day here is March 6th and 7th. March 6th and 7th, we just got confirmation. Robert Kiyosaki, best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he'll be here. Eric Trump, the man who leads the Trump Organization. It's going to be a blasty blast. There's no upsells. Aaron, I could not be more excited about this event.
I think it is incredible. And there's somebody out there right now, you're watching and you're like, but I already signed up for this incredible other program called Smoke Your Way to Thin. I think that's going to change your life. I promise you, this will be 10 times better than that.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit smoking.
Don't do the Smoke Your Way to Thin conference. That is, I've tried it. Don't do it.
Yeah, chain smoking is not a viable. I mean, it is life-changing. It is life-changing. If you become a chain smoker, it is life-changing.
Not the best weight loss program, though.
Right, really. So if you're looking to have life-changing results in a way that won't cause you to have a stoma, get your tickets at thrivetimeshow.com. Again, that's Aaron Antis. I'm Clay Clark, and reminding you and inviting you to come out to the 2-day interactive Thrive Time Show workshop right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I promise you, it will be a life-changing experience. We can't wait to see you right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma.